the mistake, you could arguably say she was on her headphone and she just stepped into the road. But then she actually got a warning sign. And what should have been a warning to step back basically followed another mistake, that she started to cuss and turn her back to basically on the street and then be hit by the taxi.
Fight wars that you can win.
Welcome to Get Your House in Order, where the Medici brothers, investors and entrepreneurs Chris Auditore and Dr. Philip Zimmermann discuss timeless principles of success, significance and legacy. A podcast for business owners who want to design a beautiful life and a beautiful business. Sponsored by the one and only exclusive Medici community.
Welcome back to the podcast, Get Your House in Order. Today with a very important, maybe the most important subject, and that is actually the art of not messing up your life. So we want to talk about some things that we kind of learned, but also that we've experienced. We're in a conversation with a lot of people, and there's so much we can do in building a great house, great business, great success. But sometimes it happens that actually something creeps in and it messes up the thing that we've built for years, sometimes for decades, and it's so tragic to see. And so at some point in your I would say in the second phase, after you bought you've built something, maybe it might be a family, it might be a business, it might be really some relationships. You need to ask yourself, okay, how do I make sure that I'm not going to mess up what is most precious to me? Because a lot of great successful people have messed up their lives by doing some stupid stuff. And we can talk about some stupid stuff that just creep in. The metaphor that I want to give in the beginning is basically that I thought it was great that I heard it many years ago, and that is basically we are juggling different things. So imagine you're juggling a few balls in the air, and some of these balls are rubber balls. So basically, if you're juggling live, and it's normal that some things just drop, and some of them are just rubber balls, and they basically bounce back, and you can keep juggling them, and nothing happens. It's not nice, it's not great, it's not what you want, but they just drop and they bounce back, and it's not a big deal. Now, other things are basically not rubber balls in your life, but Christmas ornaments. Ornaments, I think is the English word. My wife already in July, basically, she puts in my calendar for the last week of November a big fat block that I go Christmas tree shopping with her. Okay, it's the craziest thing. I couldn't care less about the Christmas tree. It kind of messes up my minimalistic view of my living room. But basically, she wins the argument, and the kids win. So every year we get a Christmas tree, and I need to get it because it's kind of a family thing. And so there's a lot of things I could say about that. But one of the things that she loves to do is have these different ornaments to put on the tree. And we have 2 young kids, so every year the question is how many of them will break, all of these great ornaments, and how many will break. Because this is what happens with Christmas ornaments. If they just drop, and if it's just kind of 10 centimeters or 20 centimeters and they drop, they break and shatter into 100 pieces. And so life is like that. That's kind of the metaphor. That some things, if they drop, they bounce back and it's not a problem. But other things, if you let them drop, they shatter. And it's a really, really difficult thing to get them back into the game of life. So, Chris, what comes to mind when I kind of share that example? What are rubber balls and what are ornaments?
Well, for me, money and wealth is a good example. So I know I'm thinking of a specific friend of mine who has done a great exit of his company. For many years he's been building, then he did an exit, he sold the company, and all of a sudden he's not an entrepreneur, a business owner, builder anymore, but now he entered the realm of investments. and he's now an investor because now he's got wealth at his disposal that he's never had before. He's always been kind of scrapping by, and now all of a sudden he's got a lot of money, and now he's switching, over to being an investor and wealth management. And now he doesn't know anything about how to invest money. He literally doesn't, because he's always been a wealth builder, not a wealth manager. So he has done some absolute terrible investments. I'm not going to mention his name, so I can talk in general terms.
Peter,
here,
sorry that we call you out.
Yeah, no, it's terrible. And he has literally shattered money because of terrible investments. He has no framework on how to do investments. Doesn't have a structure, and he's now lost a lot of money, and money that he can't get back. It's gone. He's done some angel investments in companies where I would say almost a blind man could have told him that this is not going to go well. But he met someone and they pitched him on something, and he just out of emotions kind of did an investment here and an investment there and just shared it. So so for me in the financial world, I can think of lots of examples on how you can really drop the ball. So just to give you
actually this subject came to mind when I was actually reading your new book, From Success to Significance. People can get it on Amazon, where you have one chapter. So basically you are going through the life and art of Lorenzo de Medici, and basically are showing examples. Each chapter is basically an artwork that you give some explanation to, and then kind of talk about a lesson. And one of the chapters is Tame Your Beast. And maybe you can kind of give us a summary of that. But that's actually where I got this idea from, that if we are not taming our beast, we are all having this beast inside of us, or at least the potential, that's the metaphor, for doing some stupid stuff and going down maybe a road that we should not go down if we don't control our beast.
Yeah, so I share a story of when I just started off in my marriage and business life. I was 20. That Andrea and I lived downtown Frankfurt, actually in the north end of Frankfurt. We had an apartment, and out of that apartment, I looked towards the back house, and I saw some young guys kind of staying up late at night, and it looked like a startup. And for a few weeks, I was observing them, and I was studying law at the time in Frankfurt. I had some other business stuff. But I numerous times commented to my wife, "Oh man, I would love to talk to these guys because it looks like they're late night. They're on their computers. They look like fun guys." And so one day I go over to meet the guys and hear about their business. And to make a long story short, I actually enter into business with them. We formed a company together. I did some direct sales, and we made money as of month one, selling a version of a directory to lawyers all over Germany. Me cold calling lawyers. Anyhow, fun little business. But the story kind of goes dramatic when a few months into me exploring that business relationship, the founder, who was a very charismatic, passionate young entrepreneur, who would drive his Porsche 911 Turbo into the parking lot there, and he was kind of like let's say a role model for me. It's like, wow, so young, so successful entrepreneur. When a few months into our exercise, I came back home, and one day the whole thing was blocked off. There was police, there were tapes, and the guy had been been arrested. Apparently, he had done some deals, some fraud that I had no idea about, and they locked him away. And I remember this conversation with my wife Andrea, and this is where this whole tame the beast kind of a theme came from. Is like, if you are gifted, if you're talented, if you're passionate, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're an A-type personality, then you know how to sell, you know how to get win people, you know how to win deals, you know how to get something going, which is great. This is what it needs to actually create something. But at the same time, I just want to raise a big flag and say, you know what, there's also some great temptations that can come with it, and some things that can go terribly wrong. And that can actually put you in prison, or that can destroy a good investment, a good company, a good partnership in business deals, and can, because it's almost like a double-edged sword. It's almost like there's a positive side and there's a negative side. You can over leverage, you can oversell, you can overpromise and underdeliver, and so forth and so forth. So there is something that we all need to learn to monitor, and sometimes it's only when things break that afterwards we start contemplating. And I can go into some examples in my own life and business journey where things actually had to break or did break, and then I need to set things up differently. But there is something about dropping the ball and doing some reflection around that.
Well, I remember a Frankfurt story. We grew up in the Frankfurt area, and for many years I also, as a teenager, did some street work in Frankfurt, and helped out. I worked with some former drug addicts and kind of who are now in a kind of a second half house. I think that's how you say it in English. After they came out of therapy, they lived for a few years together. And I remember one of them, Daniel. He was a heroin addict for 15 years and got sober, which was is only in a very rare cases that works out. It was a beautiful story, and I remember with him walking actually from one end of kind of the town to another one, and we were a little bit late for an appointment, and we were supposed to basically meet somebody, and the best way basically and the fastest way to that appointment was through a park, and so we get to the park, and basically he asked us, Philip, rather than going through the park, can we walk around the park? And I was like, no, we can't. We have to get to the appointment. We are late. We need to get. And I said, why do you want to walk around the park? It's much faster if we just go through the park. And then he looks at me and says, Philip, I've been using drugs in the park, and I'm not sure if this is clever, and going through the park. So I would prefer if we go around the park, because I don't want to kind of be tempted. And I was like, okay, there's a good enough reason. Let's go around the park. This picture stayed with me, and I think is such a powerful picture, because we all, have something, that are our drugs, based on our personality, based on our history, based on our brokenness. There are some things where we are tempted by. I'm not tempted by heroin, but I'm tempted by something else. And often the question is, how close can I get to it without messing up? How close can I get? And then we are proud of, rather than saying, you know what? I could, if I could just walk around the park and not even get close to the area of my temptation, basically I can avoid so much problems in my life. So I don't care if it's gambling, if it's power, if it's sex, if it's affairs, whatever your park is, your alcohol, drugs. How can you make sure to not rely on just self-discipline and kind of self-knowledge? So I give an example from my marriage. So I normally over the years have fallen kind of really often after first having a friendship and having a relationship, I kind of started dating the person. So even with my wife, for many years we were just friends, and then we fell in love. So I know that I would be stupid to start a friendship with a woman outside of my friendship with my wife. So I don't have women friends. Because I know this is a park that if I go there, yes, I'm strong. I love my wife. We have a strong family, and I'm not gonna jeopardize that. Yes, many men have said exactly that. So basically, I made the hard rule that I will not actually start relationships with or friendships, or continue even deeper friendships with women, because I know at some point there might be an attraction that comes in later rather than earlier. So of course I know that women that I'm attracted to kind of just physically, I have to be careful. That's one category. But the other category is actually that I made the decision that I'm not going to have any women friends, because I don't want to mess up my marriage, because I know, not that I'm going to mess up immediately, but I know it's a park that if I enter it, I would be just stupid and more clever to kind of walk around that.
Yeah, and this is very much part of you're sharing this as a man, but I also in the same way know a number of women who are in that category as well, and who where there are temptations that kind of creep in, specifically. As I just wrote this book, From Success to Significance, the price that we pay in order to be successful means drivenness, means dedication, means focus. And oftentimes we then look, because we're so much under pressure to perform and to build, that we look for some relief, some stress relief, some relaxation. We deserve it, and we get into situations where we can totally go off rail. And we're family people, and so we want to be not just respectful of our family. We don't just want to create a family legacy, but we also want to put out there that that there are things you need to just watch out for if you're in business.
Well, I read this great book by Josh Waitzkin. I don't know, The Art of Learning. He's this the chess guy who became a martial arts champion, and who basically then wrote a book on the art of learning. And it's a great book. I think everybody should read it. But in that book, I think, or in some kind of podcast, I think it's in the book, he kind of shared the story that there was a time that in New York, he would teach kids kind of how to play chess. And one time on his way there to the park where they would all play, like you kind of know the scenes in New York where they play chess, he basically are standing at a crossroad, and there is a girl coming in her 20s with her headphones on, being kind of all in music-wise, looking, even though it was red, so she was not supposed to walk, she looked into that one direction, and then she walks, and in that moment, basically a bike came and kind of just slightly kind of touched her on the shoulder, which should have been a big warning sign for her. But what she did was actually basically shout and cuss after this bike guy for being so stupid to kind of just touch her and kind of come that way. And in that moment, Josh basically tells that in that moment, a taxi came around the corner who could not brake and hit that woman straight, and she flew up and basically in the air and on the ground, and he didn't even know if she survived this accident or not, which for him became a chess lesson that he taught every student. And the chess lesson that he taught was that, we all make a mistake. The mistake, you could arguably say she was on her headphone and he just stepped into the road. But then she actually got a warning sign. And what should have been a warning to step back basically followed another mistake, that she started to cuss and turn her back to basically on the street and then be hit by the taxi. And the lesson behind it is, and that's so true if I look at my own life, there's normally one mistake, and if I would have just paused and kind of said, time out, let me stop, this was stupid, let me turn around and go back. But it's often that I'm making another mistake after another mistake, and these are just small mistakes that kind of, and then at some point you kind of look back and you be like, how in the world did I end up like this? This is not who I am. This is not who I want to be. But it was these small things. And he says in chess, that's basically what the true masters can do. They can basically, if you have if you make a mistake and your emotions are going to take over, and you want to fight back, and you're going to do something stupid, And that's exactly when you need a pause and when you need to breathe and you basically need to reassess. So you're not making a bigger mistake by doing a second mistake.
Well, there's a very powerful picture. What comes to my mind, because you're kind of mentioning playing chess. I'm playing a lot of chess at the moment with my young son Cedric. We on our skiing vacation we played every day. And one evening we played 20 games of chess. So it's literally, this is our one after the other. He's very good. But we're very competitive, and we kind of make a big show. One we win, we call the whole family in. Hey, I just won, and we tease each other, kind of over that. And one of the mistakes I've been reflecting on is that I love to tease with my boys. We kind of have this, I don't know, father son kind of this teasing game a little bit. And I have overstretched that a few times, where I'm just teasing him too much, and then it kind of leads to him being overly kind of harsh with me or teasing back, and it's almost like an escalation that we've had within our relationship, because we're very competitive and we're fighting, and actually this last weekend, I as I kind of had a quiet moment to do some reflection. I wrote down that I want to tease less in this relationship, because it may be fun in the moment with him, and kind of portraying our character and our personality, but I don't think it's a good long-term strategy to be teasing each other. I think it can be fun, but I don't want to overstretch it, and I don't want to just overstretch it, and so I think this is what you're describing. There are a lot of things that are kind of harmless and fun and joyful at the beginning, but it's kind of, if you step back and you kind of look at it, where does this lead me? What path am I on in this relationship? What path am I on in this business, in this investment? Where is that actually leading me? So I have some regrets where I basically didn't see the escalation, because it was small steps. I don't know if that makes too much sense. I'm also thinking of a business relationship I had in the catering business that I built. We were running we're kind of running a catering business in Germany. Opened up some shops at Frankfurt Airport, and the business partner that I had, he owned 50% of the company. I owned 50% of the company. At some point, it kind of broke off. And it was because I had some other interests. I felt more like a serial entrepreneur. I want to have different ventures. And at the beginning, we had like this full-time dedication, just this business. We're going to create it together. No other side attraction. But then I had some other interests into some other business, and I didn't pay attention to some of the signals that he was sending me that is not okay. And and at some point it's like, oh, now we have a conflict, and then we kind of split up, and it's it wasn't let's say catastrophic. It actually, I think it played out very well for him, and at the end there's oftentimes a little bit of a kind of when you come to the sales price and handing over the business. But it's these small warning signs, and this is for me why this reflection is. We're talking about not messing up your life. This is why reflection is so incredibly important. I know we keep saying this in this podcast, because if there's one thing that I want to put over this whole podcast and every episode is intentionality, is just how much reflection are you doing with what you're actually doing? How much time are you actually taking to think through also some of these little actions that you take? Kind of what does that play out in the long run?
Well, it reminds me of a great example I've kind of learned from John Maxwell long time ago, and that is basically that our relationships are like a bank account, and our marriage, our business relationship, with our team, all of this basically is a bank account. So if you imagine a bank account and let's say you have 10 euros on the bank, and with everything that in life happens, business happens, you withdraw money. You need money. Part of relationships is that you take some money. There's kind of a take and a give. So if you are only taking out of a relationship and not putting depositing some money in, at some point you will wake up and you go like, what happened? Why does this? I mean, sometimes we men are like that. We've talked to a lot of men because family is important to us. People know that if you're in a marriage crisis, please call us. We want to help, want to support, because sometimes there is a way to kind of heal. But sometimes I have these guys saying, Philip, I don't know what happened, but all of a sudden it blew up and she left me. And it's like, it's not the last thing that happened. It was just the last euro that was taken out. It was all the euros that you took out and you never put money in. You never bought your wife some flowers. You never went on a date night. You never really listened to her, what she wants out of life and out of the family and all that. So basically, life is like a bank account, and sometimes it's not the last euro you take out. It's just basically that's how you get bankrupt. Basically, it's also in business. It's maybe not the last decision is your worst decision. Also, when you lose a key employee because you did not treat them well, it was not the last thing. You go like, the last thing wasn't as bad, but no, it piled up. Basically, you have to. That was a great picture for me to kind of know, like, okay, every relationship is like a bank account. It's very normal that I take money out of it, but do I also put money in? Am I an investor into these relationship accounts as well?
So I'm reading outside the Medici and Renaissance literature that I'm reading. I'm also reading other world history, and I just read, or I'm reading a book on Genghis Khan, on how he built this enormous empire, conquering, basically the known world. Incredible story. One of a business guy, hedge fund guy from New York, recommended to me after he heard me speak on the Medici. He said, the Medici is for you, for me is Genghis Khan. So I bought the book and I'm reading on that. And one of the core lessons of this whole book is, because Genghis Khan was conquering one country after the other, this enormous kingdom empire that he built, is one big lesson is that fight wars that you can win, and don't fight those you can't. And I had this conversation with this business guy around this topic, which was fascinating, because I'd never heard that. Like, I thought, like, you're winning, you're fighting every war to win. And he said, well, yes, but you can choose which wars to fight, which battles to fight. And if you choose the right battles, you will also, your success rate will be higher. I'm reminded of that because sometimes when I'm looking at business models, at investing, doing some private equity investment or consulting on I feel like some guys are in the wrong business. They've chosen the wrong battlefield. And they're doing their best. They're fighting like crazy. They've raised the capital, but it's the wrong business model. It's the wrong industry they're in, and it's not fitting their unique gifting. And they shouldn't be doing that. They should be doing something else. And so, for me, this assessment that we need to take: which battles are worth fighting, and where do we actually shouldn't be picking a fight and just walk away, is actually a very important decision.
Yeah. Well, what an important topic, and we are all kind of learning our way to making sure that these Christmas ornaments that are very holy to my wife are not going to break during this season. So I hope the next season there are no Christmas ornaments that are going to break for you as part of getting your house in order. And thanks for tuning in, and I'm excited to see or hear you in the next episode.